Good morning, everybody. Where there is loneliness, there will be suffering. The words of Brene Brown. And it's true. We are meant to connect. We are a herd species. We are not meant to exist in isolation. But it's not just the objective, literal isolation. Someone who is devoid of family and friends. That is damaging to our health, welfare, and well-being, physical and mental, and emotional. Because we need the oxytocin, we need the bonding hormone. We need to get the stress off of deep intimacy and bonding relationships and sharing our secrets and sharing ourselves. We need the added joy of the company. We are biologically wired to sync up our heart rate. Like if you have a spouse, your heart will sync up to the rhythm of your spouse when you are close together. When you are talking to another individual and you begin to find common ground, commonalities where you relate. They've measured brain waves, electrical activity. The electrical activity in both of your brains begin to sync up. The same areas of your brains light up when you are in sync. We are on a cellular level meant to have relationships. And that is why loneliness is as detrimental to your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, so they say, the great almighty they. However, it's not just objective loneliness, because you can have a large group around you and still feel lonely. Isolation is being destitute of others. Loneliness is the sensation of being separate. And you can have a lot of people around you, even have friends and family, and still feel other, separate, alone. Like you don't have any common ground. You're somehow different, separated, segregated from the group. There's something going on that you can't share, or you identify yourself as somehow different from these people and unable to connect with them. You could have a group of people around you that is toxic, and you shouldn't be connecting with them. They bring you trauma and drama and difficulty and stress into your life, all the opposite of what a healthy relationship is supposed to offer. And that is more toxic. It's better off to be alone than to be surrounded with the wrong people and work to develop a relationship with yourself. So if you're feeling lonely and you literally do not have a social network, do your best to try to reach out and engage with other people in some form or fashion. You could join groups in the community, church, nonprofit organizations, offer to volunteer places if you have the time, health, and capacity to do so. If for whatever reason you have other issues that are holding you back, time, medical issues, other things that are leaving you feel isolated and lonely, you can try to connect to people on the interweb. There's usually someone else in a similar position, and there are support groups where you can find support You can find like-minded individuals to have rapport with. Even virtual connectedness is better than complete isolation. If you're in a situation where you just feel disconnected, you need to examine why that is. Is it your perception of these other people? Or is it your perception of yourself? Do you view these people as below you somehow? Do you view them as above you somehow? That you are never good enough for these people? Do you view them as below you? You are too good, they're not your cup of tea for these people? Or do they put you in a position of saying, you think you're too good for us, even if you don't, or you never measure up to their expectations? Then you need to distance from the people that are making you feel that way. If the feeling is coming from in here, you need to examine the source of that feeling. Do you have an ego adjustment that you need to make? Do you have some past wounds with your family and friends that you need to either forgive, or so you can mend the relationship, or let go of the relationship because you can't build that intimacy with them? And do you have secrets that you are withholding that make you feel shame about yourself, that make you feel other, less than, not good enough, like abuse or trauma that you've never shared? And so you have this inherent sense that you are other, different, broken somehow, and if people really knew you, they wouldn't love you. We all have this worry. We all have this need to be loved, needed, wanted, worthwhile, worthy. And we all have this nagging feeling that we are unlovable, unworthy, not worthwhile. And if other people really truly knew us, they wouldn't want to be around us. Everybody has both. It's an unpleasant dichotomy, but it's the truth of human experience, because we have this inherent need for a tribe. And historically, if we were abandoned or cast out of the tribe, we would die. So it feels like a death to be rejected. And it's said, and I believe it was another quote of 2021, so I can link to that below, that loneliness is poverty of self. If there's no value judgment on yourself compared to others, less than or more than deserving of your time, if there's no wounds that need mending and forgiving, if these people are not toxic and you need to distance yourself and find more appropriate people, if you haven't been actively reaching out to try to connect when you don't actually have connections, because friendships will not arrive on your door. Find places and build rapport. Have like things in common, even if it's just online. If none of this is your problem, and it doesn't matter where you find yourself, you feel lonely, it's because you are not full. You are not grown internally enough. If you find yourself, when you're by yourself, ever by yourself, feeling lonely, not enjoying your own company, then that's an internal lacking that you need to work on. That's a sign of why you're feeling lonely, regardless of who you're with. That you have some wounds, some self-identification that you need to fix, correct, work through, build up your self-esteem. Build up your life with more hobbies, activities, likes, and interests of your own. Build up your own little bubble. Get to know yourself through journaling and creativity. Find out what your interests are. Explore them. Build yourself up. Build your activities up. Build your little world up. External and internal, so that you are somebody you like being around when you are alone. And you should always be working to build a better relationship with yourself. And the better relationship you have with yourself, the more time you enjoy spending with yourself, the more of a friend you can be to yourself, the more of a friend you can be to others. And if you are not feeling lonely, but you notice others in the community, an elderly neighbor, etc., that is isolated, literally isolated, do your best to be that person who reaches out to them. Be the person who solves another person's pain. The same can be said if you're literally isolated. I say that if you can't have a blessing, be a blessing. If you're feeling really isolated and lonely, regardless of the reason, go serve at a nursing home. Go serve at an adoption center. Go serve where people are homeless shelter, isolated and alone, or feeling isolated and alone in their situation, that are worse off than you. And you make 3 wins by making connection to people that are isolated and alone. You are helping them feel less isolated and alone. You make connection yourself so you feel less isolated and alone. And you're giving service and contribution, which makes you feel like you have a purpose and a place in this planet, which builds up your self-esteem, which makes you feel less alone. So those are my suggestions for loneliness. If all else fails, Google or your favorite search engine and seek the internet for common ground. There are other people like you dealing with what you are dealing with. Overall, situations, conditions, emotions, problems that you can connect with to feel less isolated, even if you are in a position where you can't leave your house, you're homebound and alone. You have the internet because you're watching this. Reach out online. Find others like you to connect to, and work to connect with yourself. Good morning, goodbye. Have a good day. Personally, I can relate to this one. I have been largely alone most of my life, outside of a partner. When I'm in a relationship, my friendships have been sparse. And as I've gotten to be an adult, they have scattered to the winds. You get to know somebody and then they get a new job and they move or they retire, check out some organizations, click with anybody, or there's nobody in your age group, there's nobody with like attachments, you find yourself physically ill, You can't get out as much. You don't have the time or the energy to spare to try to connect. And where do adults connect? It's a lot harder these days to connect. But do your best to try to foster some semblance of a social network. Whatever that is, even those minute interactions when you go get your morning cup of coffee at your favorite coffee place and you have a little chat with the barista. Every little bit counts when you're really socially deprived. And if you have a relationship like a partner, really invest in what you have. Don't take those things for granted. And seek the internet. And seek to fill yourself up. Find that unwanted spot, unworthy spot, that bored and boring spot that you're like, if anybody knew what I really get up to in a day, if anybody knew what I really thought, if anybody knew what I really felt, if anybody knew what I've really done, they would run and work on it. Build yourself up. Good morning, goodbye. Love you guys. Have a good day. Half a heart.